Alright, kind of a response video. That Stizor guy, has made some sort of video making the argument that, there's all this proof that microbes can survive in space, and it's just such a pile of crap. So anyway, I went to two videos. I'll leave links to them. And they're just bullshit stories. I mean, one of them has to do with a space shuttle that blew up, and the fact that they had been doing some experiments, on some microbes, and those experiments survived the crash. And that's not exactly a huge surprise. I mean, a thermos bottle would have survived the crash. Lots of things could have survived the crash. And I'm sure these microbes were in some sort of container because they didn't want to get contaminated and all this other stuff. And so all they had to be is in some sort of steel jar. And there's no reason why it wouldn't have survived the disintegration of the space shuttle. And then the re-entry from whatever altitude that was, which was high, but there's no reason why they couldn't survive if they're in a good enough container. So that's no big deal. I mean, that's a meaningless story. I mean, we've probably dropped microbes from weather balloons before, and it's yeah. So whatever. It's just meaningless mush. So anyway, the other story was this moon camera. I guess apparently from the original moon landing, they brought back and they found the common cold had survived the trip. But it was inside the camera, inside a piece of insulation inside the camera, and that's essentially a spaceship. And so it's again not miraculous that a cold virus, pretty strong a microbe, um, would survive 30 months on a trip, okay, in a capsule, basically a space capsule. Maybe it was very small. Maybe it was just an air bubble in foam insulation. But the point is, it's a spaceship for a microbe. It's a rather large spaceship for a microbe. And so it still had an oxygen environment. It wasn't exposed to anything but a lack of gravity. And certainly microbes aren't going to be terribly disturbed by a lack of gravity, considering most of them are nothing more than plankton. Um, but anyway, yeah, so it's just this desperation to come up with a better story for the life thing, and it really you can smell the search for God again. Is people just want to make this it's just again put it off to someplace else. So life didn't form here as a function of chemistry. No, it somehow got formed someplace else in space, and that's where God made it. You see, that's where God really is on that other planet someplace where He made the life thing. Because we can't just say it was created here, so it had to be imported. So we have to be aliens now because that makes us more interesting. And it's not just consumption and reproduction, then it's something else. It's imported consumption and reproduction. I don't know what the people are looking for. It's just disgusting. So anyway, it's also a guy commented on my last video, and he made this typical comment like, why? Well, we should take life and then plant it like Johnny Appleseed. We should go out into the universe and drop little hunks of um, bacteria and let it do this little Frankenstein evolve game. Uh, just this complete validation of what life is. Now, 99.99% of life is happening down there in this mush, in this humus that it's living in. 99.999999999% of life is living in there, or is living as a bug. Okay, a little bit bigger, kind of a just the rawest kind of existence. Okay, just consume and reproduce. Short lifespan, just get the job done. Um, you know, just we can look at the insects world and we can just see the machinery, the mechanics of it, the raw brutality of it. And then you get at these higher up on the scale, and you get into reptiles, and still really crude mechanics. You got more of a something more touchy-feely, that we can relate to, more complex, got the brain things happening, all that crap, but still just a terribly crude existence. Um, live to die, basically. You look at, spawning fish, spend your whole life just eating enough to create enough, eggs and sperm so you can just dump your load and die. The next generation can eat your little bits of you that rot as you flow down the stream. To accomplish what? For what? For nothing. Because that's the mechanics of the chemistry. And so then you have this little tiny percentage of life after billions and billions and billions of years. A little tiny percentage of it does this. Let's write some Shakespeare. Let's care. Let's cry. Let's get all emotional and passionate and have little lovey feelings and all that kind of crap. Let's get a more complex psychology and a more complex, a more eccentric and bizarre way to do this basic thing of consuming and then reproducing and then dropping the fuck dead. And why? What? So how many billions of times do you have to do it? How many billions of times before you said, okay, well, that's enough of this? I mean, we don't, it's all kind of same old, isn't it? Same old game. Oh yeah, well, let's have some kids and let's watch some of them die of cancer and let's watch this car accident. Let's watch this horror. Let's witness this. Let's feel this. I mean, what is it? Come on. What are you talking about? You want to impose that into space for some reason. You want to start more of that game all over again. Billions of years just to get to a human being that might nuke themselves in 3 weeks. We've run out of. We're all in debt to each other, or to a tiny percentage of the human population that's going to ruin us all. Terrible conflict created because of this complex psychology, the soap operas it creates, the drama all over the fucking place, just oozing drama. And yeah, you want to impose that on the peace and quiet of space. I just don't get it. I mean, what the hell is going on in your fucking head? I mean, what? What about your life is just so fucking magnificent? I just don't see it. Sorry. But that's the nature of addiction, I guess, is that you're going to validate it first, you're going to rationalize it, you're going to glorify it, and then you're going to think there's cause to impose it on somebody else. Just create the next victim. It's kind of like the victim of the abuse who becomes the abuser. It's a weird. It's a real psychology, but I'm still going to call it weird and fucked up. It's sick. Sorry, but you're just sick little Frankensteins in love with the Frankenstein concept, and but you can't defend it with anything rational. Just some sort of vague notion that you're accomplishing something. Well, that's really not good enough. And like I said, when you look at the real context of how life is living, what it's living as, and the brutality of that life, to sit there and just have no apprehension, fear. Yeah, you people scare me. You scare me. So anyway, this real video is really just about the whole idea, though, that here we have people finally get past the God concept, but they're just trying to reinvent it in some other form. Now it's so many other forms. It's Gaia, Earth, breathing monster. It's feeling atoms, or it's imported life. Life had to come from far, far away in the universe and make a long journey to come to the Earth so it could squirm around like a worm, for a few billion years. I mean, come on. It's just so insane and stupid. Alright, so anyway. So I just wanted to point out that this crap that these microbes are surviving space trips is kind of just bullshit. They're surviving if they have a capsule, a space capsule, they survive. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. And it might be possible, theoretically, like if a comet hit Earth, it would shoot a bunch of stuff into space. maybe it's possible inside some clay or something that a microbe might be able to survive, but for how long? I mean, this is a question. Um, and it's hard, because you're talking temperatures that are just going to be really tough for not to end up sterilizing all that matter, the amount of radiation and everything else. It just is. Anyway, I'm just saying it's a theoretical possibility, but it's meaningless anyway. Um, because the way the Earth was before life flourished on this planet, if life today landed in that on that Earth, it wouldn't survive. It would die because it wasn't an environment it could survive in. And that's another trick to this whole biology of life thing. Is the first, I made the argument that there should be competing life on Earth, and there really should, if life happened more than once, because it would have these first living things too. You got to remember when the first reproducing cell thing happens, it doesn't have built into it a death mechanism. All right, the first living thing is a life mechanism, and all it does is live, and it just takes over everything. It spreads like a virus, like a crystal. It just moves through the structure, and the first living thing on Earth likely did that, and somehow, it had to change. It had to alter itself. Not alter itself. Wrong way to put it. It was altered through mutation in time, where it was able to start consuming the mass that it had created, because it would basically consume the environment. It would cover every surface. It would suffocate itself in its own piss and urine, and so it would have to adapt to be able to eat that piss and urine. And it would also have to adapt to a system of mortality that balanced its reproduction, because it would just be a feast and famine kind of situation, until it established that balance, and it would consume all there was to consume, and then it would starve. So anyway, even that's another barrier that a living thing, a living machine has to get over, is that barrier that it will consume its island environment. Because it's always going to exist on an island. It's always going to be confined on a planet or on something contained in the vacuum of space, and it's going to it's going to have to learn how to live on that island, without um, suffocating itself with its own reproduction. So that's just another hurdle that a living thing has to overcome to ever get to this level, to ever get on the evolutionary path. Is one of the things it has to develop is a mechanism for dealing with the fact that it's going to alter the environment, and that's what it did. It completely altered the environment. It created the oxygen atmosphere, and then it had to learn how to live in that atmosphere. But anyway, it had to adapt to living in that atmosphere. Gotta be careful how you word things, because people will nitpick things to pieces. So anyway, that's enough of a video, I think.